Okay, so these are the facilitator tips for the practical application section of the wellness module. So for the first question, when you ask them what are some behaviors that you could change that would help you move toward wellness, this would be a good one for you to have the group kind of go, obviously people that want to go around and name what they wrote for these behaviors they could change to kind of help give others ideas, especially at the very beginning of this program. It's hard for people to come up with ideas for things, whether it be behaviors they could change, or especially a big one is, things about them that they like, strengths, that kind of stuff. So it's just helpful anytime you can on some of the questions that maybe are could be less triggering, to have people kind of go around and name what they wrote. One, to help inspire other people for ideas, but also just to see how many people struggle with similar things. It kind of helps build community and camaraderie and stuff. On the second one, what barriers do you face that make changing your behaviors difficult? So you want to be sure to emphasize the validity of the barriers that people face when trying to be healthy, such as poverty, very limited free time, illness that makes self-care hard, etc. Encourage them to think about what they do have some control over to make improvements so that they can have the best quality of life they currently have access to as we continue to hopefully move in the direction of making health more accessible to all. So a big one here is, not making sure that we're not making people feel like their lack of wellness or their lack of self-care or whatever is just all their fault, because they're just lazy or don't care or whatever. Like we all have legitimate barriers that we did not create that do make it very hard for us to access wellness. Not impossible, especially with each other's support, but very difficult. And so we need to make sure that we are helping people feel valid in that structure, in that struggle. Especially, like, a good example of this, right, is unfortunately, unless you have the ability to grow your own food or something like that, eating healthy, and eating, foods with no pesticides on it and things like that is can be a very expensive endeavor, especially if you have a big family. Even, I mean, I'm one person. I have a one person and two cat household, and and eating healthy is very expensive, and also like not accessible in rural areas and whatnot. Um, so people that don't make a ton of money, that can't, that especially if they're in, not just in poverty, but even people that are, above the poverty line, like, it is very hard to afford a healthy lifestyle. Um, and obviously the more that we change that individually and societally, we will make it more accessible and whatnot. That's what we're trying to do with this. But right now it is hard for a lot of people to access just healthy food. And so, shaming them for everything that they eat when some of it is not really in their control. They're doing the best they can, like that's not helpful. So we want to make people feel seen and understood and valid in their struggles and the things that the barriers that they do face, while at the same time realizing that we do have a lot of power. We can overcome those barriers. We do have resources available to us to start to make improvements and things that we do have control over. And it just seems to be the case. I've noticed that when we start just taking control of the things we do have control over and making improvements, the universe seems to have a way of figuring out how to give us access to more gradually. So it's a good lesson to help people learn. And that's that next one is, what resources do you have available to you that would help you to at least make improvements in your behavior? So this is, again, a good one that would be good to discuss out loud, to help people get creative with identifying these resources that they have, and have participants share resources out loud to generate ideas. So doing stuff like, asking them this question essentially helps them to start to think about, like, instead of just this mindset of lack and not having enough and, facing these, we do face those barriers for sure. We want to acknowledge that is accurate. And also we're more powerful than we realize. And we have, especially collectively, we do have resources and things that are disposable that can help us be able to find ways to still make improvements and make progress. So this question helps them start to not just focus on the barriers, but also focus on ways in which they can be resilient and start to overcome these things. And having people share resources, out loud, if possible, helps people to be able to notice what resources might be, like, locally available to them that they weren't aware of, or available to them online that they weren't aware of, that could help them, start to overcome some of those barriers. All right. And then down here, number 6. So number 6 says try to balance self-acceptance and compassion for where you are right now with taking your power back from harmful industries. This allows you to be able to love and accept yourself as you are right now while also being motivated to keep moving in the direction of wellness. So for this one, just to illustrate what we mean by it, it can be good to give examples of self-statements to show acceptance and motivation for growth, such as, I am so thankful for my body and everything it does to keep me alive, and it is beautiful and enough exactly as it is. And I also want to do my best to feed it as well as possible so that it can continue to get healthier and have the nutrition it needs. So that's just one example. You can make up your own example or have everybody, if you have the time for it, you can have everybody go around and make up a self statement for them that it applies directly to them that shows both acceptance for where they are right now and also motivation for growth. Because a lot of people think that the only way to motivate, and that's why this is right underneath the part that says shame is not a helpful motivator. A lot of people that are trying to get themselves to change or motivate themselves will try to use shame, try to be like, the way I am right now is terrible. It's not enough. I'm a piece of crap. I shouldn't be like this. And they're talking to themselves that way with a lack of acceptance to try to get where they want to be. And that is not, you're not going to hate yourself into loving yourself. And so instead, trying to change that mindset to show that it is possible to love who you are and what you are right now, flaws and all, and also continue to have motivation for growth. Because part of that mindset comes with, well, if I accept myself as I am right now, I'm going to get complacent and not try to make any progress. And that's also not true. We can make space for both. And then just at the end of the list of these action steps, just a reminder that this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some of the things that we've come up with. So if there's other stuff that you want to add, it's very flexible and customizable. So add anything that you feel like would be helpful for your class.